the motorcycles at all.
Motorcycling is about escaping things. It's about getting out there and getting away from the realities of your life and getting some time to yourself. But this is not about escapism. It's more about, in fact, confronting the things that we don't usually talk about, men's health and mental illness. So, well, we take it on.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas. I'm Molly Gandhi. Let's get started. Our top focus tonight on Gravitas for you is on the Russia-Ukraine war, with Russia preparing, it seems, for a final push to conquer East Ukraine with a massive stockpile and thousands of troops. Will it work is the question. Will it be a game changer? And does a brutal winter await Ukraine? We're decoding all of that in just a bit. Also on the show for you tonight, we get you a Gravitas special report on why NASA wants ISRO on the moon. Is Israel deliberately starting wildfires in southern Lebanon? We decode the developments and get you the bigger picture. Gloves that deliver electrical shocks. We tell you all about this new deadly tool that immigration and customs enforcement agents and officers in the United States may soon have. Also, a special report coming up on how over 2 million Afghan girls remain locked out of school. As the Tata Sons chairman steps down, we tell you all that you need to know about what's happening on that front. Did a pilot, after consuming marijuana, put an Air India flight in lethal danger? We tell you what is known at this point. As many as 3 reactors at a nuclear power plant in France were shut down because of a massive swarm of jellyfish. All this and a lot more coming up. Over 1,600 days. That's how long the Russia-Ukraine war has dragged on for. The question is, how many more days before it ends? Remember when Donald Trump said he could end the war in 24 hours? Well, that's clearly not happened. Along the way, in fact, things even reached a point where he said the US has got nothing to do with it. We have seen several twists and turns along the way. As of now, a crucial juncture yet again seems to be emerging. Russia seems to be gearing up for a massive escalation. It is reportedly preparing for what is being called the final push. Will this fall and winter become Putin's way of carrying out this so-called last push? Will it work? Will it be a game changer? Does a brutal winter await Ukraine? A number of serious questions right now. Remember, squeezing Ukraine as far as using the harsh winter to make matters worse for the country has been a part of Russia's strategy. Ukraine, meanwhile, has also been attacking Russia's grid to the extent that it has led to an impact in Russia. Let's just decode the strategies from another lens for now. Has Russia's strategy of a so-called war of attrition actually backfired? Has it led to its own exhaustion and fatigue more than Ukraine's? And has this happened at a faster rate as compared to the pace at which Ukraine has been losing its ability to resist, if at all? While there's no easy way to answer that, the fact is, on the battlefield, things have only been heating up. Russia and Ukraine continue to exchange heavy fire, with long-range strikes escalating far beyond the front lines. Ukrainian drone strikes, in fact, on Russia's south killed 2 people, including an 8-year-old. Ukraine has justified the increase in strikes on Russia in what it says is fair retribution for Moscow's own daily strikes on Ukrainian cities. In fact, Russia's southern region, home to several tourist hotspots, also saw a barrage of several hundred Ukrainian drones. According to the regional governor, he said that debris from drones damaged 21 buildings in the port city. Russia's defense ministry, meanwhile, said it shot down over 500 Ukrainian drones across its territory and the Black Sea overnight. On the other hand, Ukraine said Russian drones killed 2 people in the frontline city of Kherson, including a woman whose house was struck. And Ukraine's Air Force reported Moscow launched missiles and drones, 112 of which were shot down or intercepted. They were mostly targeting its southern Odessa region and Sumy in the northeast. Meanwhile, Zelensky has warned Russia could launch a new mobilization after its September parliamentary elections. Not just that, he claimed Ukrainian intelligence has evidence of preparations for the move, including a possible recruitment drive involving hundreds of thousands of Russians. Russian authorities have not confirmed such a plan, reportedly. According to the Ukrainian president, Washington could help by strengthening Ukraine's air defenses and pressuring Russia to move towards an end to the war. In fact, U.S. negotiators Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner expected to engage with both sides after peace efforts have largely stalled, and in an update that came in just a short while back. According to a report in the Financial Times, Ukraine has paused drone strikes on oil tankers using Russia's Black Sea port after a request from U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. The report said this, citing Ukrainian officials. The report added last month's request followed U.S. alarm that Ukraine was destabilizing oil markets and harming U.S. firms by targeting tankers carrying crude piped from Kazakhstan to a Caspian pipeline consortium terminal at that port. That's the location we are talking about. That's the Black Sea and the port that we're talking about. Meanwhile, there's another crucial aspect here. Is the cooperation between Russia and North Korea deepening? And if yes, to what extent? Remember, there's a lot of background to this. In the latest, Ukraine's president, according to him, Russian forces used ballistic missiles supplied by North Korea in an attack on the southeastern city of Zaporizhia. And he said Russia had used missiles, drones, glide bombs to attack Ukrainian cities. What about peace? Is there any hope at this point? While Volodymyr Zelensky has said Kiev has handed U.S. new proposals aimed at ending the war, this reportedly coming amid suggestions by both Ukraine and Russia that U.S. negotiators would soon pay a visit to their 2 countries. But will things work out this time around? As of now, hope is in limited quantity and the uncertainty is only deepening. All right, shifting focus now to struggling for battlefield success in Iran, the aura of invincibility around the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military seems to be shattered. Donald Trump's confirmation of switching planes in Turkey has now ignited a lot of concern and a flurry of memes as well. We'll break this down for you bit by bit and explain what's really happening. First, according to reports, the trigger for Trump's plane switch was Israeli intelligence, which reportedly indicated that Iran was plotting to use shoulder-to-air missiles to take down his aircraft. Someone in the vicinity of the NATO summit reportedly had been spotted with a shoulder-fired missile. That's not all. Reports also suggested that Iranians specifically knew where Trump was staying in Ankara.
I guess there was a threat out there. I didn't really ask too much about it. I get a lot of threats.
Now, Trump's big admission, which shows his fear of being targeted by Iranian missiles, standing in sharp contrast to his usual portrayal of bravado and might, projecting himself as the best. even the savior of the world. Take a look at this AI-generated poster. Surrounded by stars, planets, spaceships. Trump branded as Cosmic Commander, set to unleash a new era. These were posts that were put out on his account. Take a look at another post now. Gloating over America's military prowess. This post showed a large Trump in the sky with military jets hovering around. Guardian of the world, it said. Explosions can be seen rocking areas marked as Iran. Iran, meanwhile, has given him a reality check, it seems. Let's now show you this visual posted by Iran's embassy in South Africa. It depicts Trump hiding in a food trolley with plates, cutlery around him. Taking a jibe at Trump, the post read, I'm quoting, "He will be hidden in a trash can before long." Iran's embassy in Zimbabwe, meanwhile, was not far behind either. It put out a photograph reflecting how Trump's words and actions do not seem to match. On one hand, it shows Trump dressed as a fighter pilot and contrasts that with him hiding in a food trolley. Iran's embassy, meanwhile, also took pot shots at Trump's desperation for talks in itself. It showed a worried US president in a battlefield, it seemed, with no missiles left and depleted stockpiles. Tehran also mocked Trump over his latest assertion that the US has total control over the Strait of Hormuz. Have a look at this post. A rather grim-looking Trump seen dipping into Hormuz, surrounded by the flags of Iran and Oman. Now, it's worth noting here that this is not the first time when US Secret Service has used decoys to ensure the safety of the American president, of course. For instance, while traveling from New Delhi to Islamabad, the then US President Bill Clinton, this was way back in 2000, he secretly switched from his military plane to a jet to avoid potential security threats. However, the difference back then was that journalists were informed about this security risk. While the security threat to Trump may have been credible, there is a major question. Why were journalists and others aboard that old Air Force One plane not apprised about this threat? What about their lives? What about the lives of journalists who were literally left to fend for themselves? With Trump now sidestepping this question and instead claiming that the plane which he flew on was at greater risk, questions over this incident and what has emerged so far continue to mount. All right, shifting focus now to another special report for you. The United States wants to make the next era of lunar exploration bigger, a lot faster, and more cost efficient. In fact, it aims to build a base on the moon, and for that, NASA wants ISRO on board. And the reasons are quite clear. India, after all, has built its space program around exactly that formula. And most importantly, it has already shown the world how to reach the moon for a fraction of the cost. Just to sum this up, India has got more done, it has spent less, and above all, it got the mission done, making India and ISRO extremely lucrative. NASA's moon-based program, Invitation to ISRO, is aimed at establishing a lasting human presence near the moon's south pole, basically by establishing humanity's first outpost, one that could prepare for crewed missions to Mars and drive lunar scientific breakthroughs as well. Now, let's tell you more about this. The invitation came during the 9th meeting of the India-US Civil Space Joint Working Group in Bengaluru. The US ambassador, in fact, called it a step towards deepening the US-India deep space partnership. And Chandrayaan-3 explains why. In 2023, ISRO landed safely near the lunar South Pole, a historic first, and with a mission that cost roughly $75 million cheaper, did not mean smaller. In fact, the mission delivered a huge landmark moment. Not just that, it demonstrated the core strengths of India's space model: engineering at a frugal cost, fast execution, and also the ability to turn limited resources into global scale achievements. And that's exactly the kind of partnership, or rather a partner, that NASA needs perhaps right now. Because a moon base is not one mission, NASA envisions a permanent, habitable outpost where astronauts can basically live, work, conduct scientific research for extended periods. Let's tell you more about the base. It would be built through a series of crewed as well as uncrewed missions with habitats, power systems, rovers, cargo operations developed over time. China also has a similar lunar ambition, remember, targeting a crewed moon landing before 2030 and the construction of an international lunar research station at the moon's south pole, running directly in a competitive space race alongside NASA's Artemis program. So that race has only been heating up, and the development also comes at a time when India is also building its first national space station, remember. The station with the first module planned for launch by 2028 and full completion targeted by 2035 itself. India's maiden human space flight, meanwhile, targeted for 2027. And to ensure that Gaganyaan becomes a sustained space exploration mission, ISRO is also reportedly establishing a crew isolation facility and astronaut quarters in Sriharikota, where future astronauts will be trained and equipped for space travel. Now, it's also important to note here that the location near the lunar South Pole for this outpost is quite strategic and significant. In fact, scientists believe permanently shadowed craters there contain water ice, a potential source for life support, and even future fuel production. So this is extremely significant. And some elevated areas also receive near continuous sunlight, making them valuable for solar power. But a permanent presence comes with a permanent bill as well. Habitats, power, rovers, cargo, life support, science and crewed flights basically will all have to work again and again. Every mission will cost money. Every failure will come at a huge price, if at all. And that is where ISRO's expertise, experience could become a strategic asset, to say the least. India has shown it can build, launch, and operate complex space missions without the budgets of the world's biggest space powers. It has also shown resilience. Chandrayaan-2 ended in partial success in 2019. 4 years later, Chandrayaan-3 landed. NASA likely sees ISRO as a partner that brings technological sophistication, but also something just as important for a long-term moon program is cost discipline and proven success, of course. Just for further perspective here, as of 2024, NASA reportedly operates with an annual budget of approximately $25 billion, whereas the Indian Space Research Organization functions on about $1.6 billion. A huge difference, meaning ISRO's annual funding is roughly 6% that of NASA's total yearly allocation. Imagine that. And ISRO could also bring its experience in cost-effective mission design, reliable launch services, and lunar science, while in return gaining access to advanced expertise in habitats, life support systems, and deep space operations. India's participation would also push ISRO from robotic lunar exploration towards a role in sustained human presence on the moon. So the next phase of the space race may not be won simply by the country that can spend the most. It would also be won by the countries that can achieve the most with the least cost. Time now to take a quick look at the global headlines at this hour, taking you around the world in 120 seconds.
North Korea fires ballistic missile towards Japan. Seoul says North Korea fired a missile into the sea off its east coast, days before massive US-South Korea joint military drills set to begin on Monday. Cockroach Janta Party founder Abhijit Dipke has hinted at a fresh campaign, saying Season 2 of its Jantar Mantar movement will begin soon. New Delhi sees a sharp rise in H1N1 influenza cases, with infections surging nearly six-fold from last year. The Indian capital has recorded 1,344 cases so far in 2026, compared with 229 during the same period last year. At least 44 people died after an overcrowded ferry carrying 114 adult passengers capsized on Zimbabwe's Lake Kariba. Witnesses say the government-run ferry sank due to rough weather. U.S. consumer prices rose only slightly in July, with falling gasoline costs helping keep inflation in check. The latest data also showed modest increases in food and clothing prices, while prescription drug prices declined. Flights at Italy's Catania airport have resumed after fresh ash emissions from Mount Etna forced authorities to restrict airspace. The disruption is affecting travel during the peak summer holiday season. Argentina superstar Lionel Messi has said he has serious doubts about continuing to play football for much longer, following the death of his father, Jorge Messi.
A whole new dispute over the Golan Heights is putting Israel's control over the strategic Syrian territory back under international spotlight. At the same time, Israel is facing serious accusations of fueling environmental destruction in southern Lebanon, where repeated fires have reportedly scorched forests, farmland, and olive groves. Let's just break this down for you. First, let's tell you about what's happening in Lebanon. Firefighters and residents there accused the Israeli military of triggering wildfires with its munitions and drones, as well as drones. Near Qiyam in southern Lebanon, Israeli forces reportedly dropped flares, allegedly over a wooded area, setting vegetation ablaze. And when the firefighters moved in to contain the flames, reportedly, an Israeli drone strike landed nearby, allegedly forcing them to retreat. But what's even going on here? First responders and residents in other parts of southern Lebanon have reported similar incidents, describing fires in dry woodland, scrub, and agricultural areas. Environmental groups say the damage threatens forests and biodiversity already affected by years of conflict. Just for context here, Israel has previously said Hezbollah uses wooded areas as cover for fighters as well as tunnels. The focus now shifting north to the Golan Heights. Colombia's newly elected right-wing president has recognized Israeli sovereignty over Golan Heights. The South American country, in fact, becomes only the second country after the United States to take that position. Syria has condemned the move as a violation of the United Nations Charter. The UN, remember, considers Israel's annexation of the Golan Heights illegal under international law. Israel captured the territory from Syria during the 1967 Six-Day War, remember? Syria attempted to retake it during the 1973 war, but it failed. Israel expanded the military presence beyond the Golan ceasefire line. In 2024, following the fall of Bashar al-Assad, Israel says security and historical claims justify its control. The territory also carries enormous strategic value. The Golan Heights overlooking northern Israel, also providing a major vantage point into Syria, with Damascus roughly 60 kilometers away. The plateau also sits near key water sources, including the upper Jordan River basin, the main freshwater resources in a way for Israel. And the Israeli Prime Minister has strongly defended Israel's claim over Golan Heights. In a video post on X, Netanyahu said the Israeli flag would remain over Golan Heights because, in his words, this is Israeli land, quote unquote. That's what he said. Israeli Foreign Minister, meanwhile, has called Colombia's decision historic and said Israel will push other countries to recognize its sovereignty over the territory. Now, this dispute also coming as Israeli officials warn of growing security tensions, with Syria raising questions about the future of the Golan Heights and the wider region. Israeli Diaspora Affairs Minister, in fact, just recently stated that a war with Syria is inevitable due to tensions near the border. On to South India now. Let's tell you more about what's been happening even as the monsoon session of the parliament has been marred by several disruptions, derailing any meaningful debate as such on key bills. The Tamil Nadu Chief Minister has taken the lead, whether it is the amendments to the country's foreign funding law or the pending delimitation bill. The actor turned politician Vijay has emerged as a fierce opponent, in a way, of the BJP. On Tuesday itself, the Tamil Nadu Assembly approved a resolution tabled by the TVK government urging the centre to withdraw the FCRA amendment bill. And speaking on the bill, the state's education minister asserted that its provisions may adversely affect the autonomy of charitable organizations and educational institutions run by the minority communities. This came barely a day after representatives from Christian and Muslim organizations met Vijay at the state secretariat. The delegation, comprising bishops, basically discussed matters pertaining to minorities amid growing pressure by the opposition. The centre agreed to send this bill to a joint parliamentary committee a few hours earlier. Let's also take a closer look at how exactly this bill will be impacting NGOs. The government has basically proposed the creation of a designated authority that can take over control of assets of any NGO whose registration has expired or has been cancelled. Even institutions built with partial foreign funds like schools and hospitals could be taken over. That's not even all. Such seized assets can be sold off, proceeds of which will go to the central government. Additionally, state governments have to seek its permission before starting any probe related to this act. Now, this is not the only time when Vijay has taken on the BJP's policies in a way. A day earlier, the Tamil Nadu Assembly passed another resolution seeking the abolition of the National Eligibility Cum Entrance Test, or NEET, for the undergraduate medical admissions. It also requested the BJP-led centre to allow states to grant medical admissions based solely on Class 12 exam scores, citing financial and psychological pressure on the families. And earlier in the day, the TVK chief also took a firm stance on the delimitation issue. His government tabled a resolution requesting the centre to keep the existing Lok Sabha strength at 543. Vijay also demanded immediate implementation of 33% reservation for women in the parliament and state assemblies based on their current strength. The TVK chief highlighted that more women had voted than men in the last assembly elections. Interestingly, this resolution also got the backing of the DMK, after which it was unanimously adopted by the House. From the Kaveri water dispute matter to other issues, it's increasingly emerging that Vijay is trying to also surface as a key challenger to the BJP in a way, and in turn further bolster his party's standing in the state. After spyware, facial recognition, US President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown is taking a step further adding a whole new deadly tool to its arsenal. The US Immigration and Customs Department, ICE, is now planning to spend up to $20 million to purchase thousands of gloves. They are no ordinary gloves, by the way. They are designed to deliver painful electric shocks to suspects. Basically, they will function as a normal pair of gloves, reportedly, until the agents press a switch to activate their electrical mode in order to bring uncooperative individuals into compliance. However, there are serious safety concerns, of course, which have been flagged by the manufacturing firm itself, reportedly. According to Compliant Technologies, reportedly, the gloves can give a shock of up to 362 volts and may cause serious injury or even death if not used properly. In fact, the manufacturer prescribes that officers must complete a course to use these gloves and be recertified every 2 years. It also recommended that security forces should avoid touching areas like the head, face, throat, chest with these gloves. That's not all. The company warned this tool should not be used as punishment, torture, and on high-risk populations like children, pregnant women, the elderly, and those who are specially abled. However, activists have also expressed alarm at this plan, as ICE is already facing criticism over their use of brute force against alleged illegal immigrants, with at times little oversight or accountability, allegedly. Protests, remember, originally erupted across America after a 37-year-old was shot dead by an officer. This was on the 7th of January. This was followed by a series of such cases. Also, over 50 people have reportedly died in custody since January last year, when Trump started the second term as US president. Now, public support for Trump's immigration crackdown, where is it standing? It's also waning, it seems, according to a recent opinion poll conducted by YouGov, which surveyed over 1,600 US citizens. 1,600. Over half of them complained that ICE is using too much force. Nearly half of the respondents expressed no confidence in this federal agency and demanded its abolition. As per the poll, only 1/4 of Americans believe that the suspects who are deported are criminals in reality. And this also comes at a time when living conditions in these detention centers have come under intense scrutiny. A lot of questions have been raised. Recently, a family from a man from El Salvador who died in such facility, allegedly, in New Jersey, alleged medical negligence by the authorities.
When he left the detention center, he was already dead. I have a recording they gave me at the hospital saying that when he arrived, his heart had stopped.
Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the U.S. House of Representatives, called for a closure of this detention center. He also accused Trump of lying to Americans on the alleged weaponization of ICE.
Instead, being used by ICE and Donald Trump's violent mass deportation machine to brutalize and kill American citizens and law-abiding immigrant families. Donald Trump lied to the American people. He said that immigration enforcement in this country was going to target the worst of the worst. That's not what has been happening.
And while ICE recently announced that its field officers will be equipped with body-worn cameras by the end of September, amid intensified pressure for accountability, it issued a key caveat. While taxpayers' money is being used to buy these cameras, the footage only will be released if it is in the best interest of the agency to do so. UNESCO has warned the Taliban's ban on girls and women from education could cause decades of damage to Afghanistan, with millions of girls already shut out of school. The warning comes as the Taliban's crackdown on women and girls continues. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, it says the ban could push around 600,000 Afghan women out of the workforce by 2066 and result in $9.6 billion in cumulative income losses. UNESCO also warns that Afghanistan could face a shortage of more than 11,000 qualified female teachers by 2030. More than 11,000 qualified female teachers by 2030. UNESCO says the education crisis is also affecting the country's teacher workforce. Many teachers have left Afghanistan, while women who remain in the system have reportedly been barred from continuing some teaching roles. The agency says more than 2 million primary school children are already out of school for reasons other than the ban on girls' education. UNESCO also warning that more than 90% of 10-year-olds in Afghanistan cannot read a simple text, while the national literacy rate is just 37%.
According to the estimate we have, today, 2.4 million girls have now been excluded and banned from accessing secondary education since 2021. This number shows clearly a 200,000 addition since last school year that we had reported. This is the number of girls who finished primary education with success and actually could have continued to secondary education, but unfortunately, because of the current policies by de facto authorities, they can't.
This is an entire generation we are talking about, the kind of impact that it's having on several sections. This is the future of Afghanistan. Since returning to power in 2021, the Taliban have barred an estimated 2.4 million girls from secondary education. Girls' secondary schools were closed in March 2022. Later that year, women were also barred or banned from universities. The Taliban had called the restrictions temporary. But then the bans have remained in place. Afghanistan is now the only country in the world where girls and women are formally banned from secondary and higher education. According to UNESCO, the restrictions have also affected women's employment and freedom of movement, of course. The Taliban says they respect women's rights in line with their interpretation of the Islamic law and Afghan culture, but UNESCO says the continuing education ban risks deepening poverty, reducing economic opportunities, and causing long-term damage to Afghanistan's future, of course. Before we go on any further, a quick look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. What exactly is a spider's so-called suicide somersault all about? What is the secret behind it? And what is known? All this and a lot more coming up. Scrutiny around the Phuket-Delhi Air India flight incident deepening as fresh details have emerged on the pilot in command's conduct just 24 hours before the flight dropped around 300 feet in altitude. This after the pilot in command of the flight tested positive for marijuana in a confirmatory second drug test. Under the DGCA framework, the prescribed testing panel covers a total of 6 categories of psychoactive substances, including cannabis or marijuana. Testing is carried out on urine samples. An initial non-negative screening result triggers a confirmatory test before it is treated as a confirmed positive. The Air India flight was flying from Thailand's Phuket to New Delhi. This was on the 4th of August. The aircraft was carrying 137 passengers, including 3 infants and 8 crew members. During the cruise phase, the plane suddenly lost around 300 feet in altitude. The rapid descent created This negative G effect inside the aircraft, throwing unstrapped passengers and crew off their seats, the aircraft subsequently stabilized and landed safely in New Delhi. However, at least 20 passengers and 4 crew members were injured. 2 crew members suffered serious spinal injuries, including injuries to the tailbone and neck. The Civil Aviation Minister has confirmed the incident. According to reports, the pilot tested positive for psychoactive substances during post-flight screening. Another test was conducted some time later, which also reportedly returned positive. The second test reportedly confirmed the pilot had consumed marijuana. Reports say the pilot was allegedly not in full control of himself during the incident. The pilot was standing behind the co-pilot's seat when the aircraft suddenly lost altitude. The aircraft started losing altitude rapidly. It's called negative G situation. The pilot and loose objects inside the cockpit reportedly floated up. Passengers who were not wearing seat belts were thrown around inside the aircraft. Several passengers and crew members were injured. The co-pilot reportedly took control of the aircraft and stabilized the plane. He then landed the aircraft safely at the destination. Imagine what went on. Imagine what the passengers had to go through. The pilot was also reportedly unable to walk properly after exiting the aircraft, allegedly. Meanwhile, the cabin crew has reportedly submitted a report on the incident to Air India. Both pilots have been off the roster as the investigation is underway. Meanwhile, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau is conducting a detailed probe. The government says it is collecting and examining all the relevant evidence, and this includes technical, operational, also medical and human factor evidence. On to France now. It's facing a rather unique situation. A 20% shortfall in nuclear power production capacity. Why? The reason is a jellyfish invasion. Interestingly, exactly a year ago, the nuclear power plant in northern France faced the same problem and spent thousands of euros to protect the plant from this jellyfish swarm. So it's a deja vu. But the problem has again crippled the power plant. Take a look.
A nuclear power plant is essentially a giant heat machine. Inside the reactor, nuclear fission releases enormous amounts of energy. That heat boils water, produces steam, and drives turbines to generate electricity. But the real battle does not end when the reactor is switched off. The fuel continues producing heat. That is why nuclear plants are built with layers of safety systems, backup power, and multiple ways to remove heat from the reactor. In Japan, Fukushima showed what happens when those layers are overwhelmed. In 2011, a 9-magnitude earthquake produced a massive tsunami, which flooded critical equipment and wiped out much of the power needed for cooling. The loss of cooling led to severe core damage. And in Ukraine, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant has become a stark reminder that war can put nuclear safety under extraordinary pressure. But in France, the latest threat came from the sea. Jellyfish. Millions of them swarm towards the cooling water intake system at the Gravitas nuclear plant in northern France. The plant is enormous. 6 reactors can produce a combined 5.4 gigawatts of electricity. But the jellyfish began clogging the intake system. 5 of the 6 reactors at the power plant were either fully or partially shut. France uses nuclear power to generate around 70% of its electricity. The country has seen nuclear power production disrupted by multiple heat waves and droughts this year. Now, in total, 13 of the 57 reactors were affected due to environmental causes, as a precaution. And here is the bizarre part. It happened almost exactly 1 year after the same thing happened. In 2025, a massive jellyfish swarm forced the entire Gravitas plant offline. This time, French utility provider EDF was ready. Cameras were installed to watch the intake canals. Fishing boats were deployed to intercept the swarm. But again, the jellyfish choked the power plant. EDF says there is no danger to workers, the facility or the environment, and expects the reactors to restart quickly. But the incident exposes a new problem. Nuclear plants are designed to defeat extreme threats, yet nature does not always attack with earthquakes or tsunamis. Sometimes the weakness arrives as a swarm, and scientists warn that warming seas, invasive species, disappearing predators, and overfishing could make such events more common. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Moving on, Spider-Man, A Brand New Day might have achieved a lot of critical acclaim, a lot of praise and commercial success as well. But one fashion outing of the actress Zendaya continues to find itself amid a web of controversies. In the month of July, she wore a bejeweled brooch to the premiere of Spider-Man in Shanghai. A giant yellow sapphire spider brooch on that white and black outfit. Of course, a lot of people noticed it, but while it impressed fashion lovers and a lot of others, it also became the center of a major fashion mystery. Two claims were made for this piece in separate press releases. One issued a press release claiming the diamond and 19-carat yellow sapphire spider brooch was their design. Soon after, historic jewelry house was also claiming the piece and identified it as an arch rival 1990s design matching an identical piece sold at Christie's in 2015. While the actor's stylist initially credited Chopard on social media, the team remained silent on the ongoing credit dispute. And the true attribution remains unresolved in what is being referred to as one of the fashion world's biggest mysteries in a way. But it's not just that. Controversy surrounding the actor during the promotions of The Odyssey in the same month. The actor sparked the debate by wearing earrings made from authentic 3,000-year-old Iranian gold plaques. The ancient gold discs featuring a sun motif from the historical Zivier hoard were reset in 18-carat gold and diamonds. While historians criticized the look as cultural commodification, representatives who were behind the label, who reworked it, stated that the look was meant to honor ancient Persian artistry. Let's now get to some offbeat stories. This one also is about a spider. In nature, the search for a mate can carry a fatal price tag. Australian redback spiders execute a bizarre self-sacrificial somersault during mating. And now scientists have finally unlocked the genetic code driving this deadly obsession. Our next story telling you about this.
Nature has some brutal rules. For many animals, mating is about survival and producing the next generation. For the male redback spider, it can end with a death-defying leap. The redback is closely related to the black widow and is found across Australia. The female is much larger than the male, and during mating, the male performs a bizarre somersault. He flips his abdomen towards the female's mouth. Then he constricts his abdomen. It looks like suicide. But scientists believe there is a strategy behind the madness. Being eaten can actually give the male more time to transfer sperm. That can increase his chances of fathering the female's offspring. Now researchers have gone deeper. In a study published in Biology Letters by researchers at the University of Hamburg has solved the genetic puzzle. By tracking hybrid generations, researchers discovered that this complex suicidal somersault is controlled by a single genetic locus on the spider's X chromosome. Redbacks are not alone in this strange world. In some praying mantis species, the female may eat the male during or after mating. In certain other insects, mating can end with one partner dying so the other can survive, feed, or gain a reproductive edge. Truly, our world is full of wonders, and love is not always kind. Bureau Report, WION World is one.
Let's now tell you all about the Copenhagen Fashion Week, which took place during the first week of August, and it's turned out to be a treasure trove of new style and beauty trends. Scandinavian fashion has long been associated with clean lines and neutral colors, something that fashion experts refer to as minimalism or Scandi minimalism. But this time around, the Fashion Week held in Copenhagen also promised a bolder future. In fact, designer opened the week with a collection focused on wardrobe essentials, from oversized cotton shirts to matching pull-on trousers. Outfits in soft beige tones ruled the runway. The appeal of understated dressing, which is the core of such minimalistic aesthetic, remained intact with other such collections as well. But even as the Scandi minimalist aesthetic remained a part of Copenhagen's fashion identity, designers are also broadening their horizon. And the Spring 2027 collection is proof that Scandinavian style is no longer limited to quiet dressing and is perhaps heading for Scandi maximalism, as many are calling it. This year, many designers embraced a more expressive approach. For instance, Opera Sort displayed a mix of color with two-piece sets and embellished sheer blouses. And instead of sticking to neutral basics, many others offered wearable interpretations of floral prints. The shift to bold and bright is a welcome move and is also telling of the time to come. Unlike fashion capitals that are usually dominated by historic luxury houses, Copenhagen has a number of younger brands that are quickly adopting to changing styles as well. Let's now get you Gravitas' image of the day. For this, we take you to Germany, where the country marked the 65th anniversary of the building of the Berlin Wall with an installation and an open-air exhibition. In fact, the wall was built 65 years ago at the height of Cold War and fell on November 9, 1989. At least 136 people were killed just trying to get through the wall. The wall split East and West Berlin, as well as sealed off West Berlin from East Germany. We now focus on a big question hanging in the air, the answer to which determines a lot. US President Donald Trump has once again lashed out at Iran. In fact, terming the American naval blockade as a wall of steel, claiming that Iran's economic situation is worsening. But then there's a key question here. Is Trump's frustration a sign of a complete breakdown in the negotiations? Is that what's happening behind the scenes? A quick look now at major events, 3 of them expected to unfold over the next 24 hours. In Bangladesh, candidates will fill their nomination for the presidential election on Thursday. While the ruling BNP is yet to declare its candidate, the opposition alliance has announced Oli Ahmed as its candidate. Zambia will vote in a general election in which 14 candidates are vying for the president's post. About 8.79 people are eligible to cast their vote. Ex-Nepal Prime Minister Sheikh Bahadur Dioba is returning to Nepal on Thursday after a period of 5 months and is expected to get a huge welcome at the airport after he left for Singapore in February for medical treatment. Cases were initiated against him. All this and a lot more as we wrap up is expected to unfold over the next 24 hours. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching.
Once a year, grown men in this city put on three-piece suits, or well, at least a blazer, in 40-degree heat and call it a good idea. This is the distinguished gentleman's ride. It happens on the same day in over 100-odd countries. And it started, of all places, with a photograph. A bloke in Sydney saw visuals of a television character. Remember Mad Men? And thought, why don't men dress like that anymore? Men don't gather like that anymore. So he put it online. A few mates, nice clothes, old motorcycles. That was 2012. Today it is one of the largest motorcycle events on earth. And we'll get to this. It isn't really about the motorcycles at all. Motorcycling is about escaping things. It's about getting out there and getting away from the realities of your life and getting some time to yourself. But this is not about escapism. It's more about, in fact, confronting the things that we don't usually talk about. Men's health and mental illness. So, well, we take it on the chin and riding on, but we're still talking about it. And I think that's a step in the right direction. So, there you go, folks. Gentlemen for a day, if not longer.
French football turns the page. Zinedine Zidane is the new head coach of Les Bleus. The French Football Federation has officially named Zidane as successor to Didier Deschamps, who steps down after 14 years in charge. For France, this is more